All right, welcome back to Storytime with Sarge. I know last week I promised you I would upload a video of how I met my wife and how all that went down, but she hasn't been feeling too good this week. So uh, by the time you see this one, you will have already heard my audio and video on why I was such a terrible leader when I first got promoted to sergeant. This time, I'm going to be discussing why I changed my leadership style, what was uh, what was one of the main reasons, and I'm also going to be talking to my friend Guy Smith. He is my best friend. We've known each other since we were a PSC and a specialist. Right after my unit's deployment in 2003 is when I really got to meet him and get to know him a little bit. He told me about Korea because he was there recently, not actually pretty shortly before me. And I thought he was a cool dude, and I was actually mad that I only just met him then. But luckily, when I got back from Korea, I got put right in the same exact duty station, same battery and everything, and we ended up being in the same platoon together. And we deployed together, and we became. That's when like our bond really solidified. We had a lot in common. Some things we didn't have in common, but it didn't matter because uh, no matter what it was, we had a genuine love for each other. All of our soldiers we did, but um, I knew that I could go to him with everything, and he can come to me with everything. Anytime we needed to complain or anything about our soldiers, which we barely ever complained about, unless it was something like where they got in trouble for something, we were complaining like, how could that even happen? Or leaders. Like there were certain leaders in our unit that I literally wanted to fight, but he was way bigger than me, so I couldn't. All right, but his name is Guy Smith. He's now a first sergeant in Monterey. Uh, Again, my best friend and one of the best leaders I know. So here he's going to be on the phone, so you're not going to be able to hear him as good of quality as you can hear me. But we're doing our best here after 2.5 hours of fighting with this. This is the best we got. So, Guy, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. It's great to be with my boy Jason Eck, one of my favorite people on this planet, and my best friend, absolutely, and a fantastic leader who is one of the people I can count on one hand that is absolutely somebody that can turn any situation around and that can be counted on to turn a situation from a lost cause to gold, and somebody I have ultimate confidence in. And if I were to choose somebody to invade hell with, this guy would be on that team. First round draft pick, absolutely.
Wow, thanks, man. Thanks. That was unexpected. I really appreciate that, man. That means a lot to me, especially coming from you. So today I want to talk a little bit about. It's going to start with story time, right? I'm going to tell you a little story, but um, I want to bring Guy into this because I don't want all of my stories to be a monologue and one-sided. So we're going to talk a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to talk about why I changed my leadership style and what I worked into, and I'm going to ask Guy the same questions. If there was a major change in his style, what was it in his career or his life that made him make that change, and then we'll go from there. If there's anything we'll disagree with, we'll I don't know, we'll tongue wrestle over it or something. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But all right, all right. So yeah, I told you guys about when I was in Korea how terrible I was. And I think I left off at that when I got back from. No, I talked to you about a little bit about my deployment, and I was going to introduce you to Derek, which I still will one day. But having Derek Bailing and another guy who I haven't talked to in years, his name was Jeff. We'll leave it at that, not more. Uh, and he was these guys. I noticed when I came in, I was coming in strong again, right? And I knew that these guys were going to have to probably eventually protect me. We were going to combat. Who knows what we're getting into? We were going into a mission that we were all unfamiliar with. And it was at that point I was like, all right, I need to treat these guys a little bit different. And I always took in what that sergeant major had told me about everyone who was pretty much a specialist and below had joined the army during a time of war. And like I said, it gave me a little bit more respect for him. So I started being a little more kind, and I noticed that I was still firm. I was still like, "Hey, we need to get this done right now." But I laughed and joked a lot more. I made them feel a lot more comfortable with me, and I think that helped quite a bit. And when I got with my fellow staff sergeants, it was like it was like a tag team of stupid humor, which was hilarious, and a lot of it we simply cannot talk about on this podcast, but a lot of it we can. So anyway, I adjusted my attitude from there, and then there were a couple missions we had where we were constantly getting our tires blown. I don't know what was going on, but we were always out there changing tires, and I could confidently get out of my truck and leave my rifle in the truck because I needed both of my hands and know that my driver was going to get out with me and protect me while I was changing a tire. But my gunner always had the overwatch and was very, very well aware of what was going on around us. So I could feel safe going out there unarmed to change his tire. And then there were situations where there were IED attacks and I had to go, one, look for a body, but then, secure it, get all the people away, things like that. And no matter what we were going through, my soldiers always had my back. Like my crew, it was just two of us in that one truck, always had my back. And then there was a mission where there was an idea that had gone off and blown this one guy's leg in half. That was one of our last missions together, me and Guy. They ended up changing our mission shortly after that, but that's when our platoon sergeant had switched out with our first sergeant for a mission. First sergeant wanted to go with us, and we were happy to take him. We were always ready to just have a good time and go literally wherever, as long as we were off the fob. We didn't care. So he was with us, and I remember calling up, and I was like, "Hey guys, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah." Got his leg blown in half. At first, I thought he was fine. So I'm on the radio like, "Hey, tell him he's good." And then his leg, I watched it fold in half the wrong way, and he went flying down. And then Guy came up. He didn't just come back to help me. He made sure there was a secure element in front, and he made sure we had security in the middle of the convoy before he even came back. All I did is said, "I need help," and he took over. He ran that stuff. Sorry. Like a boss. He got secure element in there. He got everyone, made sure they were good, checked on everyone, and then he came back to help me out. And he was able to make sure the guy got an IV while I went and set up a medevac. And I led into that story because I think the funniest, most stupidest thing I had ever done was on that mission. So we were out of chem lights. Chem lights are glow sticks. And I asked him for some, and he had a whole box he gave me, and I had just run out. And I remember I opened them all up frantically because I just called in the medevac. Oh, my lieutenant had called it in. And I run back to mark the landing zone, and I realized I had no rifle in my hand and a handful of lit up glow sticks in the middle of the night. So I was literally a walking target. It was the easiest target ever. And I remember I was like 30 feet behind my Humvee before I even realized I was in the pitch black, and I was just a giant glowing ball. So I remember they had never landed in any of our LZs that we had set up that entire deployment. They would land wherever the heck they wanted, no matter what we did. And we started out making them so beautiful. Like, we had the best marked LZs, man. We were so proud of ourselves. So this one, I just chucked the chem lights. I was like, I'm not staying out here. I launched them far. That helicopter landed right on them. Like, I was so furious because we had to carry that dude so far. But yeah, anyway, Guy was there for that one, and he took over like a boss. Like I said, I was doing coordinations for everything else, and he was on the ground handling that dude so well. And that story, I feel like I just had to throw it in there. It has nothing to do with why I chose the way I led, but it gives you a little insight into not only one of my funny stories, but insight into how I saw him as a leader. And I never told him. You don't go back and say, "Hey, good job leading that." You're just like, "Thanks for the help, dude." But yeah, he was pretty kick-ass. So yeah, Guy, I know I left you quiet for a little bit, but I talked a little bit about why I chose my leadership style, and I'm gonna go into it more. But I want to do it I want to do it in kind of like a sequential order with my stories, but I want to hear, Guy, what made you decide to be what made you choose your leadership style? And before you answer that, I feel like you're going to answer similar to mine. I know my leadership style is servant leadership. The army tries preaching it. They try to get NCOs and leaders to do the servant leadership thing, but the problem is we're also taught get things done right now, hurry up and get it done so we can get the next mission done. And what happens a lot is our junior leaders become that toxic leader that everyone's afraid of because they don't really learn how to lead. In all the schools we go to, we learn how to reference things. We learn like what the manuals say, and it's like, okay, cool. I know where to find this regulation to get my soldier in trouble, but they don't pay attention to the whole picture. The whole like, this is how you should take care of your soldiers. Taking care of them isn't only yelling at them. If that makes sense, Guy.
It absolutely does.
Cool. So yeah, let's hear about it, man. I want to hear a little bit about your leadership style and why you, if you had to make any adjustments, what adjustments did you make, and then why you made those adjustments.
Well, hey, thanks for the awesome lead up. And that I just want to before I get started on this, I want to say that serving with you in Iraq was the pinnacle of my career, and we had an amazing team. And what we did there was for each other and for the mission, and for we were such a unified team. And I think what it boils down to is that I had a lot of toxic leaders as a young artilleryman. Where I was scared of them. I was afraid that they would berate me or they would make me feel low because I'd experienced that so many times. And I think that the first time I saw that change, a change in that leadership style from my leaders, was when at the time Sergeant First Class, actually he was a staff sergeant when he first took over as our platoon sergeant.
That's right, yeah.
Staff Sergeant Bunn at the time, and he became Sergeant First Class Bunn and took us to Iraq. And Sergeant Bunn was the ultimate team builder because we became a tribe where we trusted each other. We trusted him ultimately. We knew that if we relied on him and his leadership and each other, that we would be successful. Even if we were to perish, we would die with honor, right? And so Sergeant Bunn, and later on became, of course, Command Sergeant Major Bunn, built a tribal type of situation with our platoon where you and I would have done anything for the people in our platoon in the Dirty 30. We knew we would. And we knew that if the shit hit the fan, or the stuff hit the fan, pardon me, that we would have each other's backs. And we demonstrated that numerous times there. But I think that when Sergeant Bunn spoke to us, he was honest, but he was fair, but he was also real. And we knew that he was going to give us honest feedback. But he was going to do it in a way that was not toxic, that was not berating. He was trying to grow us and to make us better and to make us, effective. And so I watched what Sergeant Bunn did, at the time, Sergeant Bunn, and he became my mentor, and he became somebody that I could look to, that I had ultimate confidence in. And then I met you. I already knew you, but you became part of the platoon. You were already part of the platoon, but you were somebody, Sergeant First Class Eck, retired now, that I had ultimate confidence in, because you're the type of guy that literally makes any situation better because you're resourceful, you're intelligent, and you're able to build teams as well. And the thing that made my I don't think I had a defined leadership style before. I was kind of fledgling, but Sergeant Bunn's manner of talking is we would have invaded hell with that guy and fought a battle we knew we would lose. We could literally have died, and I would have been happy because I was alongside my brothers and this wonderful leader who was also my brother, but like an older brother. And then another interesting thing that happened was I remember being in the talk. We were back from mission, and we were in I can't remember where we were, but I went in, and I was doing something in the talk, and I talked to First Sergeant Hawkins. And First Sergeant Hawkins stopped me for a second. He said, Staff Sergeant Smith, how do you think I'm doing? What can I do better? What are some things I'm not doing? And it totally shocked me because I had never heard that before. I never heard somebody ask a subordinate, hey, what am I not doing? And I thought about that, and I was so impressed. And at the time I couldn't think of anything he wasn't doing, because here's a guy who literally punched a guy who disrespected his battery. Before we deployed and we merged two different batteries from different battalions, we had a first sergeant that was extremely toxic. I mean, horrible.
Oh yeah.
And when he was in a meeting with the other first sergeants and with the sergeant major, he had made some reference to the soldiers in 214 that First Sergeant Hawkins was in charge of, and First Sergeant Hawkins laid him out, and handled business. And I know that a lot of people may think that's a bad way of handling business, but I think that it showed his true loyalty for his men. And I think that those two individuals, like, really had a lot to do with my decision to be that type of leader. Because as a leader, you identify the traits of people that are not leaders you aspire to be. Toxic leaders, weak leaders, things like that. But you try to hold in those values and those ideas of the leaders that you are around, that you work with, that embody what the NCO values mean, what the NCO creed means, right? And so I think that those are the two things that really solidified my desire to build a tribal type situation, where we're a family more than just a platoon or a squad. We're truly a family unit that has each other's backs, has the mission's back, and we're not afraid to die for each other. And that's really what set it up.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm glad you brought up the NCO creed. So for those of you guys who aren't military, it's a creed that non-commissioned officers we pretty much have to live by this, right? It isn't like suggested. We do. Like, this is our creed. This is what we swear we're going to do for soldiers. And it's funny he brought that up, because I remember when I first learned it, I was going to the board to become a sergeant. And my way of memorizing it was line by line, repeating line by line until I got it all done. So when I went to the board and they said, hey, go ahead and tell me the NCO creed, I said it so fast. It was, no one is more professional than I am, a non-commissioned officer, leader of soldiers. I said it so fast, it made no sense, and it made them furious. To me, it was another thing I had to remember to get by. I didn't appreciate it, right? I never looked at it line by line. I was like, dang, man, that's a lot of stuff I get to do. Not that I have to do, right? That I get to do. And I started going line by line, and that's how I would evaluate myself. And that's how I would, when I became a platoon sergeant, that's how I would evaluate my NCOs. I would go line by line and say, do you think you actually did this? Do you honestly feel like you live by this? And I would ask myself that constantly. Am I living by every line in this creed? And it turned out, later on in life, I got nicer and nicer. And I would have people, my lieutenants would always counsel me, saying, you're too nice to the soldiers. But you know what? As long as I could go to bed at night knowing that I went back to that same exact creed that Guy just mentioned and look line by line and say, okay, I'm doing my soldiers right, then I was happy with it, right? You don't have to be mean to be a leader. In the Army, they think you have to. But I promise you, once I adjusted my leadership style and taught my soldiers and treated them like I actually cared for them, because I genuinely loved my soldiers, all of them, subordinates, peers, all of them. I had a genuine love for them. It was easy for them to follow me. I would hope that. But yeah, it was. I'm really glad you mentioned the NCO Creed. That leads into another thing you said is the I don't want to mess up your word, the tribe, right? That I don't want to say a pack mentality, because when you hear pack mentality, you think aggressive or everyone following one guy blindly and all that stuff. So I don't want to say that, but I love that you said the tribe, like real close together. Everyone will protect each other, and like you said, even though some of us may not get along, we always, no matter if any outsider said anything about any of us, we would always be there to defend each other or try fill in the blank. It doesn't matter what the situation, we're always there. And I tried to carry that through other platoons. George Bunn definitely is who he's talking about. Command Sergeant Major Bunn is one of the biggest leaders I will ever, I'll try to emulate. His style rubbed off on me a lot too, and he rubbed. No, I'm just kidding. he was, he. All right, no, but and you take the good from the bad, right? And I honestly couldn't find bad in that guy. If anything, it was good and neutral, right? He definitely strived to be an awesome leader. So why would you not want to follow that guy and do exactly what he said? And he made it look so easy. And I promise you, being a leader is easy if you're doing it right. If you're actually leading and earning the respect of your subordinates. So, um, going into the tribe thing is my next couple platoons after I left. After we got back from Iraq, I ended up getting put on recruiting duty. And I just injured my back really bad in Iraq, so I knew that I wouldn't be able to go back to MLRS and confidently say I can jump up and down off of that artillery piece without re-injuring myself 1,000 times. So Guy, being my best friend, I called him and said, "Hey, what do you think I should do, man?" And he was like, "Dude, you need to go 90." It was 97 Echo at the time. It changed to 35 Mike, which is a human intelligence collector. He's like, "You have to do this, man. You're made for this. You got the personality for it. I'm telling you, you're perfect for this job." And I trusted him like an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. No, I trusted him. Like, I was like, "Done, dude." So I did it, right? I reclassed, and I tell you what, so much regret. And I'll tell that story later, because if we can fit it into this call, I will, because Guy was there, but he didn't know what happened, and I think this would be funny to tell with him on the phone. But after I left there, I became a platoon sergeant for a human team. It was a very small team. I was the NCOIC. I was in charge of an interrogation facility. We deployed 2 weeks after I got to the unit, and the first thing that the first sergeant had told me, he said, "Hey, you're taking over for the current NCIC. He's going to be your subordinate now. He's overweight. I need you to work on chaptering him out of the army." That was my first interaction with the first sergeant, and everyone was on block leave, getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. So I was like, "Damn, I wonder what I have going." I was imagining a terrible attitude. I was imagining, a quitter who just didn't care. Everything was going through my head, but going back to Sergeant Major Bunn and the way he handled everything, he never. I could confidently say a soldier can come to his platoon and he would never prejudge them. Everything he did was based off of their interactions. So I did that, and I met this dude, and I was like, he's an MI nerd, right? Whatever, we'll see what we can do. If I have to chapter him, I'll chapter him. And at that time, his wife was pregnant, and I remember after a couple weeks, he's going to appointments and stuff. And like I said, we're getting ready to deploy, or after about a week or so, he's going to all of his wife's whatever checkups he can go to with his wife to be there for his wife and incoming child, right? So, the platoon sergeant said, "Hey, Joe, I'm going to mention you in here. I apologize for not warning you in advance, but where's Staff Sergeant Anderson?" And I said, "He's at the hospital with his wife." "Well, he was told to be here." "Okay, but I told him to go to the hospital with his wife." "Well, who authorized you to say that?" I said, "Me. I'm his boss. Like, I'm his squad leader. I'm his NCIC. Like, I told him he can go. And whatever needs to get done here, I can handle it. Like, I'll do it for him if I have to, or we'll just get it done later." And it turned into a big argument, and that's when I started immediately losing respect for the guy who was my actual platoon sergeant. And I learned a lot about how not to take care of people before that, but I learned right away I wasn't going to learn anything from this guy, anything. So I fought that battle. I ended up winning it, of course, because why would you not take care of your soldiers? You can't tell someone not to take care of their people. So as soon as I won that fight for my soldier, right, for Staff Sergeant Anderson, I think I earned the respect of my platoon because our offices didn't have real ceilings, so everyone could hear me yelling at this guy. But on top of that, it gave me this new pride. Like, okay, I just stood up for this guy. I'm not going to stand up for him in one hand and work on kicking him out of the army in the other. I'm going to help him improve, right? I'm going to change everyone else's opinion of this guy, and I I took on this big responsibility, and of course, I didn't treat it like he's my project, right? I was just like, I'm gonna do what I can to help this guy, and we were still feeling each other out. And I remember he was bitter towards me, right? I took his job. I took over his facility. Guy, I'm so sorry I'm not bringing you back into this right now, but I'm going to.
No worries, brother. No worries at all.
So we're in Afghanistan driving around, and he kept like this little snipey things towards me, like little pissy attitude. We were the same rank. We're both staff sergeants. I just outranked him by years by that point. So um, he said something, and I was like, "Listen, man, what's your problem?" And he pretty much told me, like, "You took my job. What do you think my problem is?" And that's when I told him, "I didn't. Yes, I took your job, your position I took, but I'm a brand new interrogator. I'm going to be leaning on you heavily for everything. You've been doing this for years. This is literally my first time doing it. You're another leader in the Army. You're a staff sergeant in the Army. I'm going to lean on you as heavy as I can. I'm going to try to learn everything from you." Because he had a lot of experience interrogating for special ops as well. So, like, I was lucky, right? I had the perfect mentor right in my grips. And once he realized that I'm not a boss, I didn't want to be his boss. I don't pay him. I've never paid a single soldier ever. So I'm not their boss, right? I think once he realized that, his attitude changed towards me a little bit, and then we came up with a plan to run a half marathon, which got pooped on. Like we planned all these things, but I think it gave him a new motivation to see that like, a leader actually cared for him. So he did. He ended up losing a bunch of weight. He actually ran like 300,000 marathons after that. That's a rough estimate, right? But he ended up like being a superstar, right? And um, I'm not going to take responsibility for that, but what I am going to take responsibility for is not chaptering him out like they told me to do. Like, I don't believe in that. Everyone deserves a second, third, fourth chance, depending on what it is, right? He wasn't a criminal. He just gained weight. It happens, right? He gained that sympathy weight for his wife. Trust me, I did it a lot, right? um, but yeah, so that was the style I started leaning towards, and there was a little bit that led into that style that we'll talk about later in life. But I do want to talk to Guy. Um, you know what? I want to hear a little bit more from you before I tell you that story about when I was in school. Um, what would you say? Um, what is your favorite part about being a leader in the Army?
I
Feel
would say my
feel free to be
favorite part about
long-winded, by
being
the
a
way.
leader in the Army is watching the people that have been in my that I've mentored and led at some point succeed, and seeing them become a leader themselves, and watching them blossom. I think that that's the most empowering thing and the most exciting thing that I've seen. I remember in Korea, as this was as a humaner at this point, I was the NCOIC of a CI human detachment, and I had an amazing team. I mean, I had absolutely, like, if you were talking football talk, it would be like a platoon or a detachment of first round draft picks. And
Well, I wasn't
watching
there.
these guys in action was fantastic. And, you know, being able to empower them and give them the ability to, you know, be proactive on their own part and to actually accomplish the mission the way they accomplish the mission, and to put them in a situation where they can be successful. I can think of there's one NCO that I can really think of that really, or actually two, Sergeant Demian, and she was the first one that got there, and she was struggling because she didn't have, she was reclassed in 35 Lima and had some issues with warrior leader course, things like that, getting that, and then the paperwork and all this kind of stuff. Well, I recognized some traits in her that were immediately like amazing, right? And so between her and a few other NCOs in the detachment, they were all great. But watching how they blossomed when we gave them the opportunity to captain their own vessel, to kind of okay, I know you've got I know you know what's going on. You've got the ability to do amazing things. Let's see what you can do. I'm going to empower you to be able to do those things. To watch them just blow the doors off it, and then to go on from the estimate solomite attachment, to go on from there and become, members of a special missions unit or a elite organization like the 160th. To watch these guys just blossom and become amazing NCOs and amazing leaders and become warrant officers and things like that, that gives me the most joy of anything. And watching my former subordinates just absolutely destroy things and just become monsters in a good way, to become amazing leaders and to accomplish great things. And watching them carry forward and pay forward the lessons I learned from people like Sergeant Bunn, Sergeant Major Bunn, and First Sergeant Hawkins, and from people like you, Sarnek. The lessons I learned from you guys, I paid forward, and they paid forward, and they're now completely experts in their field, and just knowing that they're doing well. Because ultimately our situation as a leader, our mission as a leader is to create leaders, right? And I think that the best gauge of how we've done as leaders is how our subordinates become leaders and how successful they are as leaders. And so that's ultimately what it boils down to, because we are supposed to be force multipliers, right? We're not supposed to be just a force multiplier or a leader in our organization. We're supposed to create those leaders so that the Army can become stronger and better, and that we can defeat our adversaries, right? The people that I've influenced, and that, not just through my own means, but through the lessons I learned from people like Sergeant Bunn, Sergeant First Class Eck, First Sergeant Hawkins, great leaders that I've encountered in my life, they gave me the tools and the understanding of what it means to be a leader. And so when I take those lessons and I apply those to the situations I'm in, and you empower those subordinates and you give them confidence and you give them resources and things like that, that really is what we should all aspire to be as leaders. And so even if you're a subordinate soldier, though, and you're let's say you're a specialist, a PFC, a private even.
These are junior enlisted people.
You can actually provide that mentorship and that confidence in your peers, right? You can give them tools they can use to be stronger. You can empower them by showing them that you have confidence in them. And so really that's what it boils down to, is just, when you see those people that you've mentored and that you've led become leaders themselves and to be really successful, that's my number one thing that I think that gives me so much joy, is that I know that they're doing well and that I've had some kind of impact on them.
That's awesome.
So that's what I'm going to go with right there.
Dude, so there's two things you said. I could go all day. It's story time with Sarge, right? I have stories for everything. There's two things you said that I'm going to remind you. I'm going to tell you both of them so I can come back to them because I forget everything. But one thing you said was empowering your junior enlisted. Another thing you said is, I guess you take pride in their accomplishments, right? You celebrate their accomplishments. You guys have heard it 1,000 times. Guy really is my best friend. If there's been every single promotion board that went on, we called each other like, dude, this sucks. Like, we were in misery together for every single promotion board, right? And then with the greatest thing anybody can tell you, any of my subordinates, man, when they pass a promotion board, when they get promoted, all these things, I go nuts. Like, I love it so much. I love seeing people succeed. And the first thing I did when Guy made that E8 list to be a first sergeant, I called him and I was like, dude, I'm so proud of you. I was excited. I was screaming before I called him. I was so wired. Because no one deserves it more, right? As a good leader, you should always never be jealous of other people succeeding. Like, what did you do that I can do? Like, what did you do that I didn't, right? Let me fix myself and become like you. And then some people get promoted by mistake. Look at me, right? So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But,
yeah, whatever.
But another thing you said was empower. said was empowering your junior enlisted, right? So he said earlier, empowering his specialists in his private first classes, PFCs, and privates. Those are our junior enlisted. Those are the guys we're mentoring and molding into junior leaders. Like we teach them as well. We should be teaching them and just dumping stuff on them left and right to get them to become a good, strong leader, or at least a knowledgeable leader, so they can get stronger later. But one of the biggest impacts, when I was a young PFC, I may have just been promoted to specialist. There was a PFC in the MLRS. I was a driver for MLRS, which is Multiple Launch Rocket System. I was a driver, and I was down scrubbing burnt, crisped up rocket exhaust off of my launcher. That's what we call them, launchers. And this PFC comes down, and he said, "Hey, Staff Sergeant Robertson told me during my counseling I need to be more like you, because you actually are very proactive and you get things done," which I really wasn't. I was doing what my NCOs told me to do, right? If I could choose between going and chilling at a food court somewhere or playing video games over scrubbing rocket exhaust off of my launcher, I would choose the video games, right? But I had leaders who said, "Eck, we need to get the road wheels, all the oil, all the lubricant changed out in the road wheels, and also the rocket exhaust scraped off by Friday. It's Monday. Can I handle? Can you handle that?" "Yeah, no problem, Sergeant." Right. So I did it. I was in the motor pool. The motor pool is where we kept all of our equipment from the second they said, fall out of formation until they said fall in for a CO, close of business formation. And that was my place of duty, because I didn't want to let my leaders down. And the biggest thing, I remember that 20 years later, that this guy said that his soldiers should be like me. That meant something to me. That meant, I was like, wow, okay, I'm doing something right. I better put the face of a leader on, right? And shortly after that, I went to the board and got promoted way too soon. But yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned empowering your junior soldiers, because it really does help, and it gives them a self-confidence boost as well. So it's been almost 40 minutes. This is twice as long as any podcast I've published so far. So we're going to have to call it for now. Guy, do you have anything you'd like to add to that little
I just want to
tidbit?
say, I want to thank you for having me on this, because it means a lot to me that you would bring me on here. I want to say that you are my absolute best friend, but you're also one of the most professional people I've ever met. You're a person I always knew you cared about the soldiers, you cared about your subordinates, and you cared about your peers, you cared about the mission. And you're somebody that I have ultimate confidence in, and there's never been a doubt that you would be successful in anything that you touch. Everything you turns to gold, and I believe that. And I'm going to say this, and this is a very humbling statement to make, but when we were together in Iraq, I knew that I was the second best staff sergeant in our platoon. You were the number one. And I don't say that because I'm downgrading myself. I'm saying that because that's how good you were. And I learned a lot from not only Sergeant Bunn and Sergeant Hawkins, or First Sergeant Hawkins, but I learned a lot from you. And so I want everybody to understand that you are a very special individual, and you're somebody that will be a lifelong brother to me. And that, my only regret is that we weren't together longer.
Mine.
So I thank you for your friendship and your brotherhood, and the fact that you had me on this podcast, because this is a very special thing. I think that you are empowering leaders, and you're empowering people in general to be successful through what you're doing. And so I just want to thank you. And everybody, I want you to know that this is a guy that is leading this podcast. So our first class retired Eck, that is legit, is real. He's a real person. He's a real leader, right? So you can believe in him. I believe in him. And I will always be his brother, and he will always be mine. With that said, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, man. I'm trying real hard not to cry. So, yeah. No, thank you so much, man. That means a lot. I promised you a story, Guy. Before we hang up, when I was reclassing to be a humanter, within 2 weeks, I called Sergeant Major Hawkins at the time, and I said, "There's got to be something you can do to get me out of this MOS." He's like, I'm still in AIT. You can just pull me, right? And it's like, get me out of here. And he said, "I'm sorry, brother. Like, You got to be there in your MOS for 48 months before you can even do anything. So I had to suck it up. And the reason I hated it, it wasn't because the job sucked, because I love the job. It's great, right? But it was the people. Um, the instructors were super arrogant, very full of themselves, and treated all the soldiers like crap. And I was a staff sergeant when I went through, a senior staff sergeant. And to be treated like that by my peers, right, was really frustrating. But then, like, I was combat arms. I got to shoot stuff and blow stuff up for a living, going into a job where I had to ask questions a lot, and I sucked at questioning. I shouldn't have passed that course the first time. They must have been desperate because I should not have graduated. But uh, when I was out in the FTX, I met the staff sergeant who I don't have contact with right now, so I can't mention his name. We'll call him Legstrong. Uh, he came out and he's like, "Hey, Sergeant Eck, what do you think about the course so far?" I said, you want to know my honest opinion? And this was in a tent, right? I had a radio attached to my chest, but there was no people there. And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, it sucks." I was like, "The people are assholes. They're all douchebags. I hate it here. I literally want to fight at least 6 of the people here. And it's really dumb. I hate this place so much." And right then, someone comes out of the tactical operations center and says, "Hot mic! Hot mic!" Yeah, my gear, my neck guard was pushing on the microphone. That all went on the air. So yeah, they got to hear all of that. So at that point, they were already mad at me, right? So then from then on, my soldiers got crapped on, man. They got all those terrible missions and all this stuff. But then we had the AAR, after action review, after the whole field training exercise. And we just done convoy missions. Remember, this is what me and Guy did for our deployment not long before that, right? We were experts at convoys and convoy security and anything on the open road. I promise you, we were the experts in that field, right? These dudes tell us, I train my soldiers, right? Tell them all how to do it the right way. They start harping on my soldiers and telling us how terrible it was. And I said, well, oh, we lost Guy for a second. I want to make sure he hears this. Let's see. I can cut this out of the audio, but if you're watching the video, you're sucking it up. Sorry. All right, well, I guess Guy will have to watch this on video later or listen to the audio. So we're doing the after action review for that, and the guy tells us, he's like, it was terrible, all that. And I was like, no, it wasn't actually. These guys did it by the book. I was like, my team pretty much wrote the regulation for this. Like, ultimately, we didn't write any regulations, but I mean, we pretty much wrote the book on convoys and convoy security. So then he proceeds to tell me I don't know shit about convoys, which at that point I lost it. And I literally tried fighting this guy, another staff sergeant, in front of all these students. I literally was like, all right, we're going to fight now. And I tried to fight this guy. And I got pulled back by a bunch of people because they needed me to graduate, apparently. But the fact that he said I knew nothing about it was a hit on my ego. But it was also like I had a lot of pride because all of our soldiers came back alive. Every single one of our soldiers that in our platoon came back in one piece. Now, mentally, we probably weren't all there anymore. We went through some stuff. And thank God we have each other, because I can tell you what, I call Guy and I call Derek all the time to catch up and to talk about the struggles we're going through, because it always helps to have someone to talk to. But yeah, Guy, if you didn't hear that story, I apologize. You'll have to catch up with the podcast and wait 42 minutes to hear it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. The next time we talk, it is now officially story time. So there's no more chronological order. It's just going to be telling stories with friends. Next time I get on, I'm trying to get Guy again and then Derek, my gunner. And we're just going to tell stories and have a good time. Thanks again, Guy, for coming. And thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.